Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know that I feel good. Doing things I never thought I could. Smiling in the mirror, I look good.
Hey everyone, welcome to Real Talk. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We have an extraordinary show. If this is your first time tuning in to a Real Talk with Homes for Heroes, the purpose of this show that we put together for you guys is to talk about the issues and the challenges we're all facing in the real estate and the lending business even, and what top professionals are actually doing and implementing to position themselves for success through what is a forever changing world, let's be honest. So it's really here to better equip you all with success strategies from top producers from across the country to elevate yourselves, our industry as a whole, and ultimately help us all serve our clients better. This show is going to be so extraordinary. I am thrilled to have you all here with us. Before I pop over and introduce our wonderful guest that we have here with us today, that's going to be sharing her infinite wisdom and what she's doing to help coach and train her own agents. One quick housekeeping thing I want to encourage for you guys. These shows last less than an hour. I want to really encourage you guys to put away the distractions, shut down the windows. If you're going to commit an hour to your success, let's maximize your time invested in it so that you can see the return on investment on that time by being present, getting your pens and paper out, maybe your notepads if you're more tech savvy than I am. Yes, I do like pen to paper a lot, but take lots of notes, be engaged, engage in the chat, ask questions along the way, and you will get as much out of this as you put into it as well. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce our very special guest. She is the broker owner in Texas of, believe it or not, 7 offices. She helps coach and train nearly 100 agents be successful and thrive in this industry. And yes, through the challenging times as well. Last year alone, I know they sold over, I think it was 715 units. Let me check my notes. Yes, 715 units together and $177 million in production. It's absolutely extraordinary what she has been able to achieve and accomplish. She is a dear friend of mine, an amazing human being, and one of the best broker owners that I know. So please welcome Heather Kelly. Heather, thanks for joining me.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you guys today.
I know, it's so great to see you. I know we've all grown accustomed to Zoom over the last few years, but I just don't get to see you enough.
I know. It's something about getting to see people's faces. You know, we interact and we with Homes for Heroes and everything else, but we don't always get to chat with each other. So I'm so excited for this.
Well, I know you're going to do an extraordinary job, and you are literally in boots on the ground doing this in the thick of it with all of us right now. So it's going to be amazing. For those of you that don't have the honor and pleasure to know you, would you mind just giving a quick little intro of yourself for me?
Sure. Well, my name is Heather Kelly. I am the broker owner of a company called Texas Real Estate Executives. But more than that, I've been a Homes for Heroes affiliate for almost a little over 11 years now. And Homes for Heroes has meant so much to me that I've incorporated it into my company as well. I was an independent producing agent for a very long time, and Homes for Heroes gave me the warmth and the connection that I needed in the industry that I just wasn't feeling on a local level. And I'd like to think that I took some of that warmth and injected it into my company when we opened 6 years ago. I began with 7 agents 6 years ago and have 91. And I had 1 location when I began, and now I have 7. So we operate on very similar principles to Homes for Heroes. We keep people in the forefront, and we try to lead with what we're giving instead of what we're getting. And that's really it. We're just a bunch of people who just really love real estate. And I'm so very fortunate that I get to be around you guys and be around them on a daily basis.
Oh, well, I love that. And it's a true testament to how you've been able to succeed and thrive and grow no matter the market conditions. It's been really a great joy to watch you do that and to do it on purpose as well by focusing on your people. And I know you do that not just with your clients that you guys all serve, but also with your agents too, which we're going to get into here
Yeah.
shortly. But this escaped my mind in our pre-show that we were just talking on. I have to ask, in the great state of Texas, where you practice, were buyers agencies and buyer group representation agreements pretty commonplace a year ago, or is this relatively new for a requirement perspective?
I think it's on a brokerage level, but I will tell you in general, they weren't given as much weight as they're being given now. We had some agents that have chosen to use them forever, but opposing brokers or listing brokers just really didn't really think about it that much. It was considered, an internal form that had no implications on the transactions. And if I'm going to be honest, from a broker standpoint, prior to this, there was a real enforcement issue, because how do you handle the public that doesn't want to deal with an agent? How do you enforce that? And how do you bring that up? So it wasn't something that got a lot of focus. There were a lot of other ways to kind of skin the cat. And now with this coming in, it's a little bit of a revamp when, hey, we know this exists, but now we have to utilize it. So
Yeah. I know buyer agency has been around for nearly 40 years, and it's different in every single state. And like you said, even by brokerage to brokerage, office to office, depending on where you're working at. Let's dive in to where you're hyper focused now with the NAR settlement coming into play, and all that going on. Where are you focusing your time and your efforts as a broker owner and with your agents, of course, too?
well, I take an approach with my agents. The approach I take is I'm interested in their whole health. So the first thing that I want to do is calm their nerves. Any change in our industry, probably any industry, but our perspective is real estate. But any change or shift can cause extreme panic and can cause major polarity thinking. So they either think it doesn't matter, or they think that they need to go get a job doing something else. I'm right now focused on calming my agents down and explaining clearly what they need to do in order to still thrive, and because it's completely possible. And also trying to teach them a few tips and tricks in my state that may be able to make this process easier and better for them. And that's a little bit of a hurdle, but I think if I'm starting anywhere, that has to be my starting point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really challenging to have clear thinking with a chaotic view of the world, for sure. So you got to start at least at a base level, to have a rational conversation and really get growth focused too, right?
Absolutely. I think we began the process a few months ago with a little bit of trickling information here and there. I developed an app for my agents, so I started putting documents onto my app that would kind of help them. And then I started doing small workshops in small groups, because sometimes that's a better way to learn. It's when you can ask questions. And I did small workshops just going over the basics, saying, this may change, but expect it. Well, now that it's really here, now we're doing things on a larger scale, and we're using our forms in Texas and different things like that. I like to think that the small approach kind of ease them in a little bit, but we'll see on August 17th. So
Yeah, it's coming. It's in the very near future for sure. So let's dive into the approach that you're talking about and kind of what you're coaching and training on. Could you share a few of the kind of the core principles that you're emphasizing when you're coaching agents on, more specifically, just articulating their value as a buyer's rep?
absolutely. So what I like to teach my agents, and what I am teaching my agents, is with these changes, it gives you a perfect opportunity to explain to your client what it is you do for them. So rather than just approach a potential buyer and say, hey, sign this buyer's rep, I'm due this percentage. No, we're going to change the way that that's done, because during COVID, that's really how it was handled because the market was crazy. But now we're going to really take the opportunity and use our salesmanship, shine, show everything that we can do and we can offer a client by starting with a buyer's consultation. Not a phone call, not a sign here, please. If it has to be FaceTime, that's one thing. I'm offering up my space to do face to face. That's what I want my agents, if they have an option, I want them to do face to face. And you start the conversation with asking the buyer about what they want. Don't start with what you owe me. Start with, what can I do for you? Have you been pre-approved? Do you know what some of these things are? Do you understand what loan programs are? Do you know what Homes for Heroes is? You go through that whole gamut that you would have gone through with your client anyway. Once you were looking at homes, while you were in the homes,
How they're gonna do this new law.
Real quick. I think we're getting some feedback. There you go.
you would have had these conversations with your clients. We all care about our buyers. I'm just having my guys do it up front. Once you develop a relationship with this buyer and you go through what you offer through several different things that I do, questionnaires and different guidance steps that you can teach them, you will find that the resistance to sign a buyer's rep with you is so minimal, because you've already worked for them and you've basically done what we did before with showing houses without it. Instead of going out and wasting your gas and wasting your time, instead you're having a consultation meeting talking about how great they are and finding out even more about them. And to be fair, probably limiting your showing time, because the more you learn about these buyers, the more that they talk to you and the more that you bond, you can in your head say, you know what? That house on Main Street won't work because it has stairs. They can't do stairs. The house on, Republic Street, that's not going to work because it has a sunken living room. But you know what? The house over there on Maple, it's perfect. And then you've limited it to possibly only one or two showings. So it's just about managing your time, but we're leading with the buyer's consultation and the buyer's interview. You want to know every single thing you can about the buyer. And we have some tools that we use, and we will have buyers fill out, or just questionnaires that we use that help make that process easier.
Yeah, I love that. First of all, for everybody that's on right now, just so you know, we will be sharing a doc that we produced based off of what Heather shares with her agents as well, that you can kind of internalize and take ownership of yourselves to equip you with having these conversations. What Heather just shared, right? Talking about them first, getting to know them a little bit better. We've got some of her questionnaires integrated into that you'll be able to customize yourselves. And like I said, better equip you to have these conversations, which we're going to dive into for sure. So thank you, Heather, for that. Much appreciated.
Absolutely.
From what I just heard you share, right? This shift and change is really giving us an opportunity to become more professional, right?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
And own our time. I love that you're approaching it as a buyer's consult, because I used to do this when I practiced in Oklahoma. This was standard practice for us there. You had to have a buyer's consult. And I know some states are like that, some aren't. So this may be a little newer for some other people, but if you don't mind, let's get into the weeds of what that looks like. I want to know kind of the structure of it for your agents. Like, what does this conversation look like? And then I'm going to follow up with questions about how your buyers are reacting to this too. So first questions first, how are you beyond the lists and getting to know you kind of stuff? How are you helping your agents have these kind of conversations?
I'm offering my agents, on a basic level, they have a safe space that has everything they need to make someone else feel at home and feel welcome to interacting with them. I'm doing that with some new pieces of swag, a new offering. Basically, I like to tell my agents, when you're having a buyer's consultation, and not only not talking about what you're going to get paid, lead with giving them something. It could be one of my community packets. It could be, I keep several coupons and different things for local businesses. Just start with an offering to this client. And I think that's probably been one of the most successful things, is because you don't always run into that. But my agents are going to lead with that. And I'm helping them by providing that to them. But really, it's the safe space and teaching my agents what are the correct ways to connect with your clients. I think as agents, we love our clients. I know my agents love their buyers, but something that we tend to forget, and it's going to sound a little harsh, but it's not about us. It's not even a little bit. And when you accept that, there's such a beauty in helping other people. And I mean, I guess it's even true with the heroes that we help as well. When you let go of that need of putting yourself in the equation at all, the relationships and the connections and the referral business that's built with these buyers is immeasurable. I have a few that want it, their salesmanship is what I'm trying to work on, how they do that and how they connect. But they want to lead with an exchange of information. So kind of a tit for tat. So you've told me we'll use dog, right? We'll use a dog, okay? Because everyone knows Tater Tot's my baby. But if they start talking about their dog, that doesn't mean it's time for you to talk about yours. That means it's time for you to talk about theirs. It's the same thing with their housing needs. If they start talking about areas and different things, I want my agents to hyper focus on what their buyers need and just dive into it. And the more that they do that, the more that they're able to help them. And it works out better.
Oh, golden nuggets strung throughout all of that. I hope you guys were writing very quickly for that, but I love that you kind of just drill it down and just say it's not about us. And the more that we can make it about the client and serving them as best we possibly can, it's an absolute game changer without a doubt.
It feels too. I mean, my job is about them as agents, and their job is about the buyer. So or the seller. I want them to know that while they do feel like they're giving up a piece of themselves to take care of these other people, they need to feel secure enough that their leadership and their brokerage is looking out for them and their well-being. And it just kind of is almost like a pyramid. You need to worry about them and let me worry about you. And that's what I do.
Love it. So you're starting with them, the client first,
Yes.
getting to know them a little bit better, kind of explaining probably a little bit about the process along the way as they learn more, like this house would be perfect, this might not, we want to be on the lookout for that, sharing a little bit of expertise based off what they shared. Next up in that conversation, I don't want to assume here, but I'm going to guess buyer representation is coming up somewhere in any of these.
Uh-oh.
Oh, are you still there?
Yeah, you glitched for just a
Okay.
second. Okay, you said next up in this conversation.
Yeah, next up in the conversation, after you've gotten to know their needs and their wants and all that kind of stuff, all the good stuff about them, are you talking about buyer representation at all in here? And if so, how?
Sure. So how we'll lead is once we get to know them and know what they're looking for. For right now, for just a traditional method, we lead with, hey, Mr. Buyer, I'm so excited to work with you. I cannot wait to get you in a house. I know that I've connected you with a lender and several other resources and Homes for Heroes. So I am ready and willing to get to work. We do have a fee that has to be paid. And in some instances, the seller will be willing to contribute, and in others, they will not. Your loan program may even contribute to take care of this, but if not, you're responsible for the difference. And here is the buyer's rep. I've found that this is a tricky spot. My agents want to take all of the responsibility and pain away from a buyer's rep. I feel that that's an error. I feel that if you do hide that or minimize the cost to your services, you're diminishing your value as an agent, first of all, because you're having a conversation saying, you've just had a conversation saying, I'm going to do all these things for you. You can't minimize your paycheck basically on the back end of that and still be considered a professional and still be given the respect and the way that you definitely have earned working for these buyers. So my experience with that is you explain the process, you explain that there are several ways that this fee can be taken care of, but in life that it cannot, then yes, you as a buyer are to be responsible for this, and stop talking. That's the end. Don't say I'm sorry. Don't say we'll find a way around it. Use very clear, direct sentences, and then let the silence be there. Let them process, and you'll be surprised at the results. If you do encounter pushback, or you have that one buyer that says, I can't afford to work with you, I can't afford to pay you. Well, then Mr. Buyer, look, the majority of homes are offering buyer agent compensation. So I'm happy to only show you those homes. Let's focus on that, restructure our buyer's rep, and you still have a buyer. Yeah, there's lots of ways to frame that conversation, but I just really feel like when you do present your fee and present the buyer's rep, you have got to be clear, direct, not rude, but clear and direct, because you've already given your value. Now, this is the compensation that's associated with it, and we don't apologize for that.
I love it. Also, so much greatness in there. I'm just gonna, just in case people missed it, I want to kind of reiterate some of the things that I grabbed from that, right? One of the key things in negotiating, or even just in having conversations and trying to drive it in the direction that you want to, is letting the silence do the lifting for you. I love that you use that technique. A lot of the times when we get nervous, which happens in new scenarios and conversations that we're putting ourselves in, and this is new for a lot of people, we tend to ramble, and you just, keep going, or you stack a bunch of different questions or no nonsense information that doesn't actually need to be there or help equip them with what they need to know after the fact, because you're really nervous about it and you're trying to fill that void. So getting really comfortable with stopping, letting them assess, giving them the opportunity, and then continuing forth in that conversation after that, I think is brilliant. I think that's amazing.
It works. Well, because if you don't stop, I feel like what you're doing is you're setting up trouble for later. So you're setting up the, well, I didn't know conversation that I have seen buyers and sellers. Now, mind you, I'm very, very protective of my agents. So if I come off a little bit mama bear, I can't help it. I'm just that way. But I've had buyers and sellers present that I didn't know, knowing full well they did. But that I didn't know came from an opportunity that they saw when the agent rambled or the agent tried to gloss over it. That presents itself as a weakness. Whereas you present yourself as firm, you will get so much more respect and you'll get so much less pushback. It's been my findings.
Yeah, I love that. You also went into a little bit, and I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper into this, into explaining your value, right? And staying firm within your worth and your value that you have as an agent and what you're offering, because we do a lot. Like, this is not an HGTV 30-minute episode. Like, you look for homes, you find the home, you write a contract, and you close in 30 minutes or less. Like, that is sadly not the process for us here.
No, wouldn't it be nice if it was like TV and we just got these big checks for no reason except we opened a door? But I think some of the things that we do are hard to articulate to a potential buyer. So it's hard to itemize every single thing that we do, but you can summarize it. So you can say, Mr. Buyer, of course, I will pinpoint and research every home that you want to look at. I will take so much work off of your plate. You're not going to have to question what this home has within it, because I'm going to already know. And if it's a problem, you're going to know about it before. But even beyond the identifying the property, Mr. Buyer, I'm going to make sure that you are connected with a lender partner that will take good care of you. I'm going to monitor that process, monitor everything within that, which is another reason to use a local lender. But monitor everything, make sure that you have everything turned in. If there's anything else that you need or any problem that you have with the lender, I'm going to be a liaison for you. I'm going to step in and ask the correct questions because I've done this a million times, and make sure you avoid pitfalls. I'm going to review your closing disclosure, navigate you through repair. You can just go on and on and on and on. But there are some small things that you do as a buyer's agent that I feel like are very hard to articulate. So I like to kind of put it under the heading of, we offer concierge service. Now, as agents, we know what that means. That means when we're trying to have Sunday dinner and they're calling us in the middle of our hamburger because they just saw a house and we're jumping up and we're going to the computer or we're doing whatever, that's concierge service. That is making that call, jumping at their whim. That's what it is. And you use whatever vocabulary works good for you. I mean, I of course have a Southern twang on everything I do, but if there's something that works better for you, then use that. But make sure you don't gloss over those details, because there is no other profession that feels they have 24-hour access to you and feels that your compensation is optional. We don't do that. So you make sure that you talk about your value, you talk about what you offer, and you do not apologize or minimize it, because it's not small.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. It's empowering first to just hear somebody say that, and then to have it kind of internalized in your own self too, when you can share that and you can share it concisely, but passionately too, so that people can understand just how much goes into this whole process for sure. So if
I'm so sorry.
I was going to ask you, you talk about the value, and you did a really good job summarizing it. I'm just wondering if you have like buckets that you want to make sure that your agents cover for the value that they bring.
Sure. First thing is, obviously the value that they bring. Start with property identification and property research. Second bucket would be third-party vendor verification. That can include inspectors, lenders, contractors, anything else that you do. Third, I'm so sorry, would be negotiations, because that's handled, that's something that you do provide for them as well. And that leads back to being firm with your value. If you're firm with your presentation and firm with your value, that gives your ability to negotiate for them even more weight. And I think that they'll see more value in you once you have that approach with them. And then fourth is probably the concierge service aspect, or whatever you want to term it. And that's kind of like a miscellaneous bucket that, listen, for agents, we do as much as like going and sweeping floors and letting movers in and making sure utility companies are turned on. The life of a buyer's agent is extremely busy, but lump it under one term. And if you wanted to create kind of a graphic for the traditional commission model, then you could easily just put it under like concierge, or don't use miscellaneous. I don't feel like that's an appropriate word, but now the other option that I don't know if you guys have played with, and I'm still investigating and I'm not implementing it yet, but I'm probably will in the future, is the tiered system. So, as we progress through this, there's a way to use the tiered system for commission in order to prove your value even more, and knowing what goes in those like 4 buckets would definitely help you if you had to develop a tiered system of compensation.
I love that. Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity here for customization and for personalization to the client and what their needs are, but also to the agent too, and what we're willing to do, offer, and all that kind of stuff, for how much you're going to be compensated as well. So it's super flexible, which I think is good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's talk about how this is in practice resonating with your buyers right now. How is it's new and newer for everybody. So how's it sitting with them for now? And then any lessons learned so far along implementing all of this?
I've had a couple. My agents are doing it. I implemented the changes within my company July 1st.
Okay.
because I knew we would have a learning period and it isn't an automatic thing, it was gonna take a minute. So my agents are working through it with our new forms for our state with the help of my fantastic staff. They are being gently reminded. And it just takes a minute and then you create a little bit of a process, but they're doing very well trying to get this implemented. I did hit a pitfall that I think nationally everyone's gonna have to worry about. And it was really kind of interesting to me. I had one of my agents, and an out-of-town agent, they had a buyer. And there was a double buyer's rep. And it was exact same situation. The buyer just wanted to see the house immediately, and the agent that they normally use wasn't available. So they signed a buyer's rep with my agent, and they had a buyer's rep with another agent. Well, lo and behold, it was also my company's listing or my listing, but lo and behold, I get a call from a broker. We have a buyer's rep. And I was like, oh, I've been waiting for this. So I was very, very fortunate that this broker recognized the situation and recognized that, hey, we're going to run into this. And I had to strike a compromise with this broker. Neither of the agents were happy, but they both did receive something. The sale did go through, but that is probably my biggest area of focus right now, is how to handle some of these conflicts that are going to come our way in order to keep my agents compensated and protected. But yeah, the double buyer rep, that was a whammy.
Yeah. Oh, the joys of change.
But you know what? The best thing about it, I think, is I'm a marketing geek, so I love diving into all of those things and finding ways to help my agents. But at the end of the day, the best part about it is we are people. So we are about connections, and particularly with Homes for Heroes, we're about creating these connections. And this is an opportunity for us. If we see it as a problem, it'll be a problem. But if we see it as an opportunity, then we are going to be the ones that kind of persevere through it. There's always obstacles in business. There's always changes to industry. We just have to be very careful that we don't dig our heels in and become so resistant to change that we make ourselves obsolete.
Well said, Heather. Wow. Yeah, it has to do with a lot of perspective, right? The more that you focus on something, or the bigger you make something, the bigger it tends to be. So where your focus goes is usually what you're going to start seeing your path. And if you're focused on the challenge, the change, the weight of all of this, or the bad news and whatnot, that's really what's going to come to fruition and kind of happen. If you're focused on the opportunity, you're definitely going to find ways to navigate through this. And I don't mean workarounds, right? I mean embracing a new way of doing things, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. I do see some questions coming through chat. Thank you guys. Keep bringing those in. For sure. I want to preface asking some of these things with check with your broker, know your state laws and regulations. This is just our experience thus far. We cannot predict the future. And we also don't know everybody's own rules and regulations that they have within their states, because they do change. Not random, different question for you. You talked about doing probably tiered compensation as a potential opportunity here. I have also heard different things with doing more a la carte style. It's very similar to a tier, but maybe just doing like a one price for specific items and all that kind of stuff. Another idea that I've heard as well is doing different buyer rep commitments. Also, like a quick single property, single day, like let's get to know you first, get to know if we work well together, and then maybe we'll do a longer term thing. Are you playing with any of those, and how have you found them to be successful or not so far?
Sure. So we are the first thing we're playing with are the parameters of the buyer's rep. I hold an intensive workshop with my agents to teach them how to write for the state of Texas, and it's different, in every state. We have a short form and a long form. I also have an in-house. With the changes, I've required my agents to use the state promulgated forms from now on. But we have a workshop, and I show them how they can write the buyer's rep to best suit the client's needs. So that's what this buyer consult will help. But yes, we write them for one-time showing agreements, attach it only to one property, attach it to, 2 properties, attach it to a specific city. I walk through that form with my agents to teach them how to use it. And like I said, I think it's different in every state, but we don't only write buyer's representations on a broad scale. Part of that consultation is to customize their needs and customize the buyer's rep. The a la carte and the tiered service fees, that I believe once we figure out a plan that I believe personally on a company level is, I guess, easy to do, because if we find a level that I can make sure that my agents do not go above and beyond, because that's the problem, is if you have a tiered service, if you say you're only going to open a door, you're only going to answer one question. Well, my agents, the buyer calls at 7 o'clock at night, it's beyond the service. Like, I have to figure out how that's going to actually work. But the initial buyer consultation will determine the level of service that they receive from my buyer's agent.
Sure. With
the option, I'm also teaching them how to write in the buyer's rep if there's an option to change or modify how they use the correct documents and bring that into play at that point.
Yeah. Lots of new things to learn and kind of implement. What are you hearing from your buyers as you're navigating these?
I think we maybe have had 1 or 2 that has had a problem. Most of them don't care. Most of our sellers don't care either. The conversation that we're using that works in Texas and may or may not work in other states, but for us, the way we're framing the conversation with our sellers is, and I'm going to pick random numbers, but hey, Joe, Joe Smith, I'm so excited to sell your house. Thank you for having me here to list it. My fee is 6%. Say, okay. Do I have your permission to share half of my commission with an agent that's going to bring a buyer your way? Are you okay with me splitting whatever it is you're going to pay me with another agent? And if they say yes, it's over, it's done. You've got it. You bring out the appropriate forms and they're okay. Now, you have to be prepared on the backside of that when, the seller says, you charge 6, that's when the firm and the silence comes in and you say, yes, my fee is 6%. You're not going to get the pushback. I mean, we have not had it. Every single one of my agents that have had some of these conversations so far has not received the pushback that we are doing to ourselves within the industry.
Shocker.
Same thing with Heroes too. So my affiliates and myself that are Homes for Heroes affiliates, I admit at the beginning there was some panic, particularly for the buyers, because I thought, how can I ask you to pay me a fee and I'm turning around and giving it right back to you? How does that work? And so I even came up with some of the worst case scenarios that could possibly happen. But the reality of it is we are still progressing the way we always have. The only thing we're really doing is changing some of our vocabulary, changing some of our scripts and the way that we say things. The amount of resistance from the public and sellers is so minimal that I think as a Homes for Heroes agent, when you have a buyer that comes along, if you're taking them to a property and you're going under contract, prior to it, if there's compensation offered, I think you can actually circumvent a lot of this stuff, is my point. I think that we're making it a lot bigger in our heads than it actually is going to be in execution.
Yeah. I love the simplification of it. And just a lot of the times, the more that we look our fear in the eye and face it head on, it just shrinks and minimizes. And I'm glad to hear that's been your experience with buyers and sellers alike as you have these conversations. I think that's great.
Absolutely. I think, like I said, we're trained as agents and brokers to look for every possible crack in order to best represent our people. And I know we all want to represent our heroes to the very best of our ability and our buyers, but sometimes us getting our knowledge, we need to make sure we don't pass those anxieties on to our clients because they just want a home. That's it. They don't care. They don't care about what our rules are. That's our job. But there are so many easy ways that we can use these changes to make us appear more professional and make us appear more put together. So I think if we focus on that, we're going to be just fine.
Yeah, and I think so too. I'm seeing a couple questions about the hero reward, and I'll get to that in just a quick little minute here as well. But we've been having these conversations all along since any of us have been practicing real estate with our sellers. It's just a different approach with our buyers, right? You and I were talking before the call with buyers agency being around for 40 years. Well, seller agency has been around for, I want to say, oh gosh, somewhere from 80 to 100. And it took that 40-year shift to see the full impacts of it and to have it come to what it is that we know today as well. It's just thinking about things a little bit differently and approaching our buyers the way that we've always done our sellers. You have listing appointments. You go there not just to preview, but to share your value, your worth, what you're going to do for them, all the things. Now we've just got to shift that mentality and that mindset over to our buyers, and we'll realize that it's a very similar experience that we're going to have with them. You're still doing the same things. You're still being their advocate and their guide through this process and helping them purchase the home that they ultimately want and that fits their lifestyle the best. You're just doing so maybe in a little bit different of a manner or order than what you've done before in the past, and better setting their expectations up front.
That's right. Perfect.
Yeah. Same with, for those of you that are Homes for Heroes affiliates on this webinar, same with Hero Rewards. We've always done it for sellers this way. It's just going to be done for buyers the same. It's just how you end up explaining it to them. And sometimes, like you said, Heather, the more that we can get out of our heads and not be the obstacles to our own selves, the more that we're going to realize it's a lot easier than what we think.
And I think our lender partners are going to help us as well. While I do, we all have different objectives. If you have a lender partner, do lean on your lender partner if there's some instance where your fee must be incorporated within the transaction into seller's concessions or anything else. Lean on your lender partner to help you explain some of that, because I found that, like, when we stray from our lanes, we tend to not do the best job. So they'll help you eliminate the fear as well.
Very true, for sure. Any you touched on a few things like concierge and bucketing, your thing. Any terms that you're gripping onto and wanting to be sure that you use, or you encourage your agents to use through this?
When it comes to representation, I tend to, we say that we offer full service benefits. We're a full service brokerage. We don't do limited service here. I mean, now that may change, obviously, but the terms that we probably will use will be the concierge service with a detail under that. And I'm not sure what I would name any other tiers of what we offered, but really, honestly, it's just full service is going to be the word that we kind of lean on.
Yeah, I love that. Word choice matters, and how people understand that. It's important.
Yes. And get rid of the word "I'm sorry." Okay, this is what I tell all my agents, and particularly my female agents. When you have your buyer's consultation and they do have questions, this is such a muddy area right now. Nobody has all the answers. We're all trying to find our way through these conversations. But having the conversations with buyers and sellers right now, please take "I'm sorry" out of your vocabulary. It does not make you appear professional. It makes you appear unsure. So you can lead with, "This is how we're doing it now. Things may change or adjust." But please, it goes back to knowing your worth and practicing with the pause whenever you present your fee. Please don't apologize for yourself. Please let them know how uncertain things are. Please let them know that things shift and change, but you are there for them no matter what. So just reassure them of your value and reassure them that you will be there to make sure that their process is as seamless as it possibly can be.
I love that. One more way to elevate our professionalism for sure is not apologizing. There's other ways that I've seen this done really, really well too. And it's a struggle, especially if you're really accustomed to saying, I'm sorry. It's hard to shift away from this, but yes, like you said, reassure them would be one thing. Another great thing is to have key phrases in your repertoire. Like, that's a really great question. I'm so glad you asked that. If you have something just on the back burner that comes second nature to you because you've said it, whether it's to somebody or just out loud in front of a mirror 100 times, right? It's going to buy you a quick moment to figure out what you want to say next too. And you can thank them for what it is that you want them to do, right? Sometimes when we have, for example, emails, it can take me a couple days to get back to them. I hate 48 hours going between somebody emailing me and not giving them a response. For me, naturally, I would typically say, I'm sorry for that. Now I'm saying, thank you for your patience. It's the same thing with the question that they may ask. Have that, thank you so much. That's a wonderful question. As we know it right now, as we go through this, here's what this means, kind of stuff. So I think that's a great tip, Heather.
Thank you.
What
Thank
else you got in that noggin of yours that you want to be sure we share?
So let me just see. Leading with the little swag thing, of course, that's great with your buyers consultations. Honestly, it's just the little item is a big deal. I don't care if it's a pencil. I mean, I don't care what it is. We have pizza cutters here. It's kind of a thing we do. Just lead with your speech patterns and your tone and everything coming from a giving place. It's just, if you can do that, man, you've won half the battle already. And then remember, I will say this, remember in dealing with other agents, if you find yourself in a situation where you have an opportunity to possibly have a buyer's agent not get compensated, that other agent is not your client. But what I tell all of my agents is if it happens to you, it will happen for you. So be very cognizant of the fact that karma is real. And if you approach things fairly, things will tend to be fairly approached back in your direction. But if you keep your conversations professional and if you work on your value proposition, always be changing that too, by the way. Sorry, I'm jumping subjects, but your value proposition and your value package is something that is always changing. I know mine is. There are things that I used to offer my agents that I don't need to offer anymore. There are things that your buyers are going to need from you that they won't need anymore. Keep your eye on what it is they may need in the future. And understand that if what you're offering is the same thing that every other agency is offering, you need to step up. You need to go one step further. Even if you're not doing it at the moment, you need to be ready and poised to take that next step, because that's how we get far in business. It's not what everyone else is doing. It's about what people are going to do. That's where your eye has to be focused.
Wise advice indeed. How are you helping your agents kind of differentiate their own value proposition for themselves?
Sure. Some of that is just a personal knowledge of my agents. How I run my company is I try to develop it. So the agents are my houses, right? The agents are my product, but I try to know who they are. I want to know what makes them tick. I spend time with them. And so when I do that, I'm able to help them form propositions that work for them. So I have one that's very heavily involved in the food bank. And so I'll have her talk about her time there, or talk about how possibly buyers could benefit from, coming and volunteering, and tailor an approach or a script that will help her with her clients. And I do that for each and every one of my agents. Like I said, I'm very fortunate that I have a wonderful staff that takes a lot of things off my plate so that I'm able to focus my time on helping my agents grow. But even if you don't have a broker that's as involved in your personal growth, then reach out to the online community. I mean, the Homes for Heroes affiliate page, everything. You guys can have mastermind discussions within yourselves, and you will continue to get better and better the more that you approach it and the more that you give to help someone else grow. You're going to grow too. You're going to learn something in that conversation. But yes, how I help each of my agents is a personal one-on-one approach.
I love that. That's one of our big things, obviously, here at Homes for Heroes, of course, in what we do, but just in general, from a business perspective, when you can tie your profession to a bigger purpose, like the food big example that you just had, like giving back to heroes for us, it can be anything. But when you can couple those two together, that's really the sweet spot where you will see your business thrive because people want to work with you, not just because of what it is that you do, but because of why you do it and what you're passionate about. And when you can deeply resonate with somebody else on that level, your buyers or sellers alike, right? That's what locks them in as clients for life.
Agreed. Yeah, it's the same way we work with heroes. It's the relationships. And like we said before, when you take you out of the equation and you focus on them, that's where the relationship starts because you're there for them anyway. You just really want them to feel it and you want them to know that you're there. Staying with them throughout the process and even your follow-up process after a deal has closed, that's going to help you with future buyers as well. So really, I think if we put the whole changes into a pile and we looked like from the top, what this actually looks like for us, I think it boils down to presenting ourselves in a clear, concise, professional manner and knowing our worth, which as a broker, I adore that. I want my agents to know their worth. The last thing I ever want is an agent to be with me that feels like their job isn't important. But isn't that what we're doing with our heroes too by saying thank you? We're trying to show them that we know their worth. Mm-hmm. So getting through the NAR situation and the NAR changes, just know your worth. That's how I'm doing.
So. Oh, I love it. God, that's a great place to kind of wrap up our conversation together for sure. Before I do, I have 2 follow-up questions for you. With agents struggling to have these conversations, what piece of advice would you give to them?
Find an agent that is not very close to you, but find an agent that you feel like has a little more experience than you and role play with them. It sounds basic, but have these conversations with them. That's one of the best things that I ever did for myself. I found an agent who honestly didn't like me and I didn't care. And we would pick an argument and she would argue one side, I would argue another, and she would run over me. And then I'd try to run over her, but she had more experience and it didn't work. But you find an agent that you're not extremely close with and you say, hey, can I sit down with you and talk to you about or have a role play conversation with you about a buyer's consultation? Will you listen to me? And if you don't have someone within your brokerage, go to the Homes for Heroes affiliate group. And if you can't find someone there, shoot me a message. I've got 91. I will hook someone up with you to argue with you or to listen to, because I just believe in that tool so much. If you have an open ear that listens to you and gives you honest feedback that isn't directly connected with you and isn't going to isn't worried about hurting your feelings, you're going to grow. But that's a very strong way to begin your buyer's consultation or buyer's proposition.
Oh, I love that. And last but not least, you kind of just did it beautifully for us a couple of minutes ago, but key takeaways you want to make sure that people leave their time with us with.
Your job is worthwhile. Helping buyers is not a little thing. Never apologize for your compensation. And it's not about you. It's about them.
Wrapped up in a nice little bow. for all of us. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. Heather, you are just such a joy to have on the show and so knowledgeable about all of this. I love your flexibility, your adaptability, and your embracing change and helping your agents. Just you can tell that you love on them and you pour into them with your whole heart. And I know that will make them wildly successful, no matter the market conditions, even through the changes that we're now seeing. The future is bright with more leaders and broker owners like you. So thank you for your time today and your willingness to share with so many of us. It has been, I've got a full page of notes. I usually do when we talk. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, Heather.
Thank you for having me. Listen to me. I need some coffee. Thank you.
You've been awesome. Thank you all who have tuned in to this. And if you need anything, Heather Kelly they can find you on what social channels?
I'm on everything. So you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. So if you're searching for me, look for my name, Heather Hunter Kelly on Facebook. Will get you a direct connection to my link tree with all of my socials.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you, girl. Always great to have you. Thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your week.
Bye, guys.